Welcome everyone to this session from Board's Impact Forum. So this session has a bit of a dual role. On one hand, it's an open session, but on another hand is also part of our program on board oversight of responsible AI for value creation. So we have some persons with us here today that are taking this online training, and some persons that are just joining for the session, just so that you have that in mind. So with us here today, we have Liselott Engstam. She is the chair of Board's Impact Forum. She's kind of joining us a bit remotely today. Me, myself, I'm Fernando Tor. I'm the operations director at Board's Impact Forum. And we have our very, very, very esteemed guests, Robin Tegland and Scott Newton. So Robin, she's a professor at Chalmers University, a good friend, partner in crime in research, but also connected to Portugal, to the Peniche Ocean Watch. So a lot of things in common there, Robin. And then Scott Newton, that has been collaborating with us at Board's Impact Forum before. And you know, if it's good, you just keep it. So thank you so much for being with us, Scott. He's a managing partner at Thinking Dimensions board at Strategy Tools. And we are going to introduce them a bit further today. So just to get started, to give you an agenda. So we start with a little introduction, just to set the scene. We will have a presentation from Robin and a presentation from Scott. Then we are going to have a poll, and we're going to go into breakout room discussion. So when we go into breakout rooms, we really want to promote that you share your experience and your challenges, and so we are keeping Chatham House rules for this. Then after some time we come back, we have a bit of a feedback, we share our discussions, and we have a little panel around these topics. Today we're going to have a bit longer conclusion and wrap up, because we have actually quite a lot to communicate. So for this first part, we are keeping you muted, but you are very, very, very welcome to write in the chat. In fact, I would encourage you to go to the chat and introduce yourself briefly, kind of where you are calling us from. And this first part of the webinar is being recorded. We don't record the breakout rooms, we don't record the discussion, but this first part is being recorded and is going to be put available in YouTube. Now, who are we? And for some of you who are joining us the first time, Board's Impact Forum is the chapter from the Nordics for CGI. That's the Climate Governance Initiative. So we have chapters in many different countries, and we focus specifically in the Nordics. So we work with boards and board networks in Sweden, Denmark, Finland, Norway, and Iceland. And we have started in 2021. We have been organizing quite a lot of events, mainly online, and also training programs. Like I said, the AI training program is part of these two training programs that we have. And we are really interested in collaborating. So if you have any ideas, I know someone that you should talk to kind of drive this agenda around being better at board work, having this perspective of bringing sustainability, bringing value creation, then please get in touch. Very, very much appreciated. So the reason why we're here today is we have, like I said, a training program, and this training program is based on research. And this research is going to be published in a book coming out very, very soon, next month in November, on the 21st of November, authored by Robin Tegland, that is with us here today, and Liselott Engstam, the chair of Board Impact Forum, and myself. So in this research, we've created this framework to understanding the governance of AI, and we have organized it in that little house that you see. So you see both this foundation that needs to be set by the boards around the accountability, the role, the competence, the structure of the board. So before starting even going and working at the organization, are we the right persons, the right board, the right processes to do this? Then we have these two pillars. It's very much about balancing both the operational capabilities, the development of these operational capabilities, and the supervision of the deployment of AI in the organization. And this is kind of connected by a very structural, important beam, which is AI sustainability impact. We're going to be talking about it today. And also where we want to go. What's the strategic ambition, the leadership required, and how this impacts our workforce talent, the transformation of the organization. So in today's session, we are really focusing, like I said here, on AI sustainability impact. And we are going to be talking very much about this dual role of sustainability, as well as the impact when it comes to ecosystem and ecosystem collaboration. Let me give you a bit more of meat on the bone on that. So um, when we are talking about AI and sustainability, most of the times we are talking about the direct impact of AI. You have probably have heard this many, many times, but it's a very, very big impact, both when it comes to energy consumption, which is astonishing, the use of water, the use of land use, and all these have really big consequences to the environment, right? So land use will have impact when it comes to biodiversity and so on. So it's really an effect that ripples into many ways when it comes to the environment, but also when it comes to CO2 emissions. It's projected that the CO2 emissions from data centers worldwide are going to be higher than those from the aviation industry. So we do have a big challenge when it comes to AI's impact on the environment. But one can also argue, okay, but can we use AI to also address the challenges that we're facing when it comes to the environment? So very much this dual role. And this is where it comes innovation. This is where innovation comes in as also a way to try to find solutions to these challenges. Now, you probably have heard, especially when it comes to the last week or so, mostly, but recently, let's say, a lot of talk about this AI bubble. So, is it going to burst? What is this AI bubble? And one of the arguments really has to do with the pricing of the assets related to AI and the valuation of companies. If we also see this from the sustainability perspective, um, is this unsustainable? Is there even infrastructure? Do we have even the infrastructure to be able to scale AI in a way that is needed so that this bubble doesn't burst? That's one of the challenges. We also have these very large language models that are just getting bigger, but they yield diminishing returns in very much in an unsustainable model. In what way? Well, when we compare to traditional SaaS software offers, usually when you have developed the solution and you just add a couple of more users, it's very cheap to add those users, right? So they are extremely profitable. The challenge with AI is that all new users are very expensive. It means that you have to keep running these models, and you're selling, for example, ChatGPT um, subscriptions that are very much below the real price of usage for that user. If you sell something for $20, but that user is actually using it for 60, 80, $100, it's a challenge. So um, we see this, all this is happening, and we really don't know where it's going to go. But we can also add to that, there was a report coming out, and you've probably have heard of this, the Nanda report from MIT. I promise I haven't read it just because it has my name on it, although I particularly like that. So the Nanda report really talks about how you have high adoption but low transformation. It was coming out very strongly in the news because it was this report that said that 95% of the companies are failing when it comes to AI adoption. You probably have heard that number before. If you read the report, it's not exactly like that. The time frame that was used was quite narrow in order to show profit or return of investment, actually. But still, nevertheless, the message was you have high adoption, but it's getting difficult to have an impact when it comes to profit and loss. And there was an interesting article, and I can share all these links later on, from Nathan Furr and Andrew Shipilov, that were really talking about this and addressing this very much. Large language models take too much energy. And we come to an interesting moment that doing the right thing for the planet is actually doing the right thing for business, which is making these models leaner, more specific, cheaper to run, more accurate, and also with less impact on the environment. That's a possibility, that's a path, and very much along the lines of um, don't let experimentation run wild, but really focus on these experimentations very connected to the business. Understand how this AI moment is part of a larger transformation. So very much we have these challenges when it comes to the impact of the environment, but also this feeling that we are overdoing it with these larger language models. They're just too big. They cost too much. They take too much energy. They hallucinate too much. So possibly this idea of having something narrower, being more efficient. On the other hand, what we have is also this idea of how to connect AI and sustainability when it comes to an ecosystem. This idea, I think that there's less people talking about this. There's less people having this perspective on the connection of AI and sustainability. Um, but this is actually the perspective that we bring in our book. So I'm going to take a little bit of time just to try to unpack this. Um, what we are trying to communicate is that AI, like I was just saying before, for AI to be successful in an organization, it really needs to be very connected to the business. It needs to make sense for that business. But in sustainability, we already have a great tool to do that, to do just so, understanding the consequences of something, and that's the double materiality analysis. So we can use double materiality analysis both for sustainability and traditional work, but also connecting it with AI and understanding how AI impacts the business and how using AI in the business impacts society at large and stakeholders and environment, etc. Because what we have is a moment where, and that's also why you have so much competition between all these AI providers. It's really a moment where there is a run to be able, which is going to be the dominant design when it comes to AI. But one thing that is interesting and what we want to bring up is in a moment that everyone has access to AI, it's a consumer tool, all organizations have it, then how can or your business be special? How can your organization actually have the biggest advantage of using AI? Well, there's something related to the data, what data you use, but to a great extent, even the data is going to be um, uh, at least as a starting point, common for everyone. That's the foundational model. The foundational model will be very similar. But then what makes it special? Well, it's really your value chain, isn't it? The fact that you have a specific value chain, that you're based in a specific location, that you have a specific work with your stakeholders, that's really where you get that special access to data and that ecosystem that makes it very hard. Say you have a business in India or in New Zealand, or even if they're doing the same thing as you are doing, being based in Europe in this case, well, but the value chain is intrinsically different. So if we are able to connect AI and sustainability from this perspective, we will be building strategic moats. So the fact that we will be able to create an innovation, create value from AI and sustainability in a way that it's very hard to replicate from others. The example that we bring out in our book is John Deere and what they have been doing with their See and Spray. So they have this AI system with cameras that understand where you should spray herbicides. And of course, what's interesting is this has a very direct impact in the environment. You're reducing the usage of herbicides, but you are also doing it in a way that it's very much connected with your stakeholders, with the people who are using your innovation. And the fact that you have these farmers using the spray and see, connecting all this data, makes it harder for someone else to come into the market and do exactly the same thing. You are collaborating with them in a way that makes your offer really, really special. So very much this idea of how you can build through connecting sustainability, the work with your value chain, the work with your stakeholders, together with AI, build an offer that is very, very hard to replicate. And we have an article about this topic coming out actually next week on the Financial Times. So we're very proud of that, and we will be sharing it with you also. Some of these topics are also on our AI program. Like I said, we are running one online session just now, but we are also going to have now for the first time online and face-to-face. So it's going to be in Stockholm on the 28th of January. So if you're interested in joining us, I'll put the link here in the chat for that program also. Now, without further ado, I would really like to hand it over to Robin Tagland. So, Robin is a professor at Chalmers University, and she's the co-founder of the Panish Ocean Watch. She is recognized widely as one of Sweden's most influential women when it comes to technology and really helping organizations navigating the complex digital landscape, with many, many published articles and books and a real source of knowledge when it comes to these topics. Thank you so much for being with us, Robin. And
Thank
I'm
you.
going to stop sharing and give you the
Yes, and
possibility.
thank you so much for that excellent presentation there. I think every time we hold these, it's amazing to see the pace of change, right, and how things are going. But what I'd like to talk about is very much also some things at a more fundamental level. So talking about innovation, talking about sustainability, but I try to take a step back and get a little bit more into what really is happening at the core. So you will get access to all of my slides, but today I'd like to talk about AI and the twin transition, where the twin transition concept developed, as far as I've understood, by the EU, looking at very much exactly as Fernanda was talking about, this use of bringing together AI with digitalization, with sustainability to actually enable a transformation for a more sustainable future. So that's what I'm going to talk with you a little bit about today. I'd like to just set us off first by taking a step back and thinking, where are we in general in the world and in the development of technology? If we think about all the innovations going on today, I'd say they're this process innovations where everything is around efficiency. We're doing what we've already been doing. We're doing a little bit faster, a little bit, maybe a little bit better quality, a little bit cheaper, but yet we're still more or less doing the same thing. Exploitation, we say. And I think what's interesting there is to say, okay, this is fantastic, but what if we were to push this further and think about if we were to start again, if we thought more around the term of exploration. I just showed this. I think this has just been released, this OpenAI Sora 2, where if you watch the video, one thing that I caught my attention was giving you the power to step into any world and letting your friends cast you in theirs. Which I think if we talk about sustainability, one of the most important thing is stepping into someone else's world. If we will say immersive empathy, understanding the needs of others. So maybe we can use this as a tool to actually enable us to think differently and change behavior towards a more sustainable future. Having said that, I think if we take a step back from the firm level, or maybe a step up to the industry level, I just did a quick 5 forces. You'll get all of my slides here, but if we think about these process innovations and very much around exploitation, what we see is very much, I would say this is I've just done for the service industry, very much declining profitability in many service industries because of these increasing threat of new entrants, increasing buyer bargaining power, threat of substitution, supplier bargaining power, and even increasing competitive rivalry. So I'll share this with you, and this is just my take on it. So I would love to hear back from you about how you see things going on in your industry, because I think this is very, very important that we do take that step up and try to understand how are innovations at the process level, at the firm level, actually influencing industries and their profitability. And what can we do about that in terms of thinking different? Now, as I mentioned, I wanted to put us more into a perspective of where we are through time. And this is something that I'm very much working with, is this locus of trust, and trying to understand how the locus of trust in value creation has been transforming as we move through industrial revolutions. I think it's very important to understand the underlying fundamental changes that are going on here. We think about, we went, with the moving from city or the country into cities, it was very much around interpersonal trust. Moving into the second with mass production into brands and institutional trust. And still, third revolution, I think there it's very much still at the institutional level, but raising the level to the platform, a platform that enables trust among third parties. The question is, if we're moving into this fourth industrial revolution, what is this locus of trust? Is it procedural? Is it blockchain based? Is it AI driven? And I think Fernando was mentioning the word ecosystem quite a few times, and I think there is something to this. So if we think about that in terms of how the locus of trust and the fundamental principles around value creation in society are being transformed, I do think we need to take that step back and try to understand how the actors are playing together to try to push this. And here, this is it's not out in Europe yet. It's only in the US so far. This instant checkout, so you can just say, hey, I want this. Oops, I'm sorry. I just want. Oops, sorry. There we go. I was trying to get rid of my people. My what do you say? Anyway, it doesn't matter. I think what you see here is that you can just put in, you search a good recipe or whatever it is, and it'll immediately go right away to checkout and be delivered home to you immediately. This cannot be done without some type of ecosystem, where OpenAI has been developing with Stripe, with Shopify, with Etsy. But I think this is not so strange that Apple said the other day, or the previous CEO of Apple, Scully, said that OpenAI really is their first big competitor in a long, long time. So if we think about this, of procedural AI-driven ecosystems, and we're talking about innovation, I think one of the things that we need to be looking for is new forms of organizing and new forms of business models, where we take innovation into business models, into new organizational forms. This law firm is just emerging in the United States. It's called Crosby. And what they want to do is challenge our age-old model of the legal firms where you charge by the hour. And they're saying, let's do something really, really good. Let's do M&A contracts just really, really well. Let's have a very narrow model that's specialized on this, and we will charge by the contract. And so upfront how much it will cost. This is a different way of thinking around business models. And for firms that have more traditional business models, we need to be thinking about how will these new players impact our ability and what's going on at the industry level. We're not only seeing, right, the business models being challenged, but one of the reasons they are being challenged is because we're seeing innovation in organizational firms, where perhaps it is very much AI first. And perhaps you only have one expert and 1,000 agents working with you. Here's a consulting firm in California called Fifth Row, which is very much starting at AI first. Now, what does then that mean in terms of moving forward for organizing? We're thinking about organizations and how we organize value creation. On the left-hand side, this is what we've done, since the beginning of the Industrial Revolutions. We've thought about these hierarchical firms, which came very much from production, where we broke things down, tasks down into smaller tasks, and we enabled individuals to specialize. We have roles, we have accountability, and so on. And what you're seeing now is organizations, this more established organizations, bringing in these in-house AI agent teams. Now, if we were to think back to the Crosby example, to the Fifth Row example with AI first, what does that mean for organizing in the future? Does that mean we might see more ecosystems of agents or of individuals who then have their own AI managers, and each AI manager has their own AI worker team? I lectured for a firm called Tungsten Automation the other day, and their person in charge of AI had a lot of very, I'd say, good videos that he had put online. And he was saying that, well, one AI manager, agent manager, can really only manage 5 to 7 AI workers at the moment who are very specialized. What does that mean going into the future? Will we continue to see maybe an AI manager having even more workers, or is it dependent upon the context window that one can input? This we don't know, but I think this we need to be as organizations trying to understand, how do we organize, because there is an underlying transformation, I believe, going on in how firms are organized, what business models, how is value created, and as I mentioned, this locus of trust, which is leading us into this fourth industrial revolution. So if we think about looking forward, one of the things I'm always trying to work with is, what might the future look like then? If we were to put ourselves into the year of 2035, when we see all these innovations going on, where we're moving from exploitation innovations process to more exploration and challenging, thinking new around business models and organizations, what might the future hold? Now, if you're following the conversation in Silicon Valley between the accelerationists and the doomers, it's quite interesting to see how they're viewing this artificial superintelligence, where we're going beyond AGI to ASI, where just you can imagine we have a superintelligence which is smarter than all the Einsteins and Nobel Prize winners put together in the world through the history. What will that mean then for how organizations? Well, we have no idea, do we? We need to just keep on looking for signals from the periphery, using our pastels framework to try to help us, because technology is only one force which is influencing the future. Now, I've kind of adapted this. We know that this framework, pastel, it used to be pest, then it went to steep, then it went to pastel. And I've added security here, because I do think, because we're moving into a procedural and AI-driven world, and the level of connection that it's enabling, that this whole aspect of security is becoming increasingly important in terms of the influence on value creation, whether it's at the industry, whether it's a society level, and so on. To exemplify that, I think one of the things we need to be thinking about is, how much do we actually trust AI? Because if we are to create a sustainable future, we do need to take a step back and try to understand, how are we building in the human in the loop and the oversight? Research has shown that AI assistants, or programmers using AI assistants, they wrote significantly less secure code, but they were more likely to believe that their code was secure. So this whole aspect of trust, I think, is extremely interesting in how we define trust, how we think about what we trust, how we trust. And as we know, this aspect of interconnection and trust can really create huge shutdowns and economic pain for not only an organization, but for ecosystems, for supply chains across the world, and even governments. If I take the Jaguar Land Rover example, I find it funny that, or strange that there's not more publicity around this attack, considering that their production facilities in the UK were shut down for more than a month, leading to losses of millions and millions and millions and millions, and the UK government having to step in and actually guarantee a loan because of the loss of profits. And it's not just Jaguar Land Rover, it's throughout the supply chain, from the suppliers to the customers, where employees have been furloughed. So if we're going to be making this sustainable future, we need to be thinking around so many different dimensions and how we trust this technology. I took up this example as well, because while maybe the technology works, it might be programmed that way. I encourage you to look at this scandal if you don't know about it. It's still going on today. But this is the result of a political party actually trying to target immigrants, and developed had an algorithm that was developed that wrongly accused or set a very high probability of childcare payment fraud to people who were of an immigration background. This led to huge issues, suicide, and the government is still paying and trying to get out of this scandal. So trust, if we're thinking about looking into the future, as an organization, we need to build trust in so many different dimensions. It's not only about caring, showing that we care about our employees, about society, about the ecosystem, and show that in our leadership about how we're using AI, that we want to create more value, as Fernando was speaking about previously with double materiality and AI sustainable ecosystems. But it's also ensuring that you have the competence within the organization to avoid such security hacks, or that we have the understanding, we have the data scientists who are capable of actually doing their work that they should be. And while we're at it, we need as well our consistent values. Our algorithms are not biased, our data is not biased, we're not creating synthetic data, which also might be biased. So these are the three dimensions that we need to be thinking about when we speak about trust. But again, it is about this overestimation. And this is just from one study where they saw, in terms of business executives, were asked the question, do consumers highly trust my company? Oh, yes. They thought, yes, people love my company. We are very trustworthy. But then when you ask consumers, do you highly trust companies in this industry? You see a very low rate. So we need to continuously work with our meaning and with our purpose, and demonstrating that we are a trustful AI-driven company. So looking into the future, what does that mean? Well, we have no idea. What we know is a small piece. What we know, we don't know, a little bit larger. What we don't know, we don't know. Who would have thought that we would have been standing here speaking about the topics that we are just a few years ago? But I think in terms of creating the future, and we need to be thinking about, yes, on the one hand, we have scenarios which are very green. We use these technologies to create a self-sufficient world where we've tackled our climate challenges. But as Fernando was mentioning, we do have very much a digital paradox, where on the one side, technology can enable these beautiful futures, but on the other side, it can very much create horrendous futures. No one talks about this issue. The waste that comes from all our devices, whether it's our cars or our computers, everything that becomes electric leads to some type of waste. If you were to put the e-waste that was produced in the year 2022 in 40-ton trucks and line them up bumper to bumper, that line of trucks would go around the equator. And that was in 2022. We are not designing for this aspect of recycling or for reuse, refurbish. We are just creating more and more junk. And at the same time, while these devices enable us to be more connected than ever, we also have a loneliness epidemic with issues of exclusion and just people feeling outside and very lonely. So at the same time, we even have the issues of deep fakes. And getting back to trust, this is wondering, how does this actually influence trust? I hear many CEOs saying, well, we're going back to only face-to-face meetings. The only way I know whether or not somebody is really who they are. So on the one hand, we can have a rosy future. We can also have a very negative future. And these are the scenarios we also need to show. where science fiction, say, becomes science fact. We need to create a sense of urgency around creating change. And just to wrap up here, I'd like to give you a few more slides, which you can take with you if you'd like to use in your own organizations, where I work on this scenario matrix, trying to show the 4 different potential scenarios. We have many different scenarios around the future. And I think it is important to try to think, how are these different axes of uncertainty, these different forces influencing the direction that the world might go? We have no idea which way, but it's very important that we actually work with scenario thinking and try to say, well, what does that mean for our organization if we have this type of future? How will we succeed? Or how can we even better work to actually create a future that we want? Unfortunately, we often are, so focused on the here and now that we miss all kinds of opportunities. If we're going to be talking about innovation and the future, we need to take a step back and take a holistic view, a systemic perspective. And I just show you a couple slides of how I'm personally working with sustainability, with AI, with twin transition. And this comes from the work in Portugal, in Peniche, which is 1 hour north of Lisbon, where I saw we have a participant from today, Luisa. And this whole idea is collaborating and creating a network, an ecosystem of individuals who are like-minded, who share this purpose of how can we create a better world? How can we improve the state of our oceans? This brings people together. But you also need to bridge many different boundaries to take on these challenges. So we've been working a lot with people in the fishing industry, with people in the diving, within the tourist industry, within all different types of industries, bringing together our competences, resources, and networks from across Northern Europe and Portugal. And what have we been doing? Well, what we've found is that these nets are single use. They're nylon. They're burned, thrown away after they've been used once or twice. If you were to go to Peniche, where this picture was taken a few years ago, you won't see any more nets. We have actually recycled and taken care of tons and tons of nets. But it's not just about thinking differently in terms of, say, creating some type of new material, or what we want to do is challenge manufacturing. So we're using AI, working together with research institutes of Sweden, and we've actually worked with creating large-scale objects from our fishing nets. So what you see here is a rowboat that's been 3D printed from our fishing nets, which have been recycled into a secondary raw material. The beauty of this is that this boat is a boat from 1896, which is no longer produced because of globalization, standardization, economies of scale. But Woody downloaded this digital design one evening and said, hey, I really want to make this boat again. So instead of sitting there with wood, he put it into his 3D printer, and 16 hours later, he had a boat that was 3D printed. Now, this material can also be shredded and then reprinted again. But we don't stop there, because it's really about thinking completely new around the products we're producing, thinking completely new about the materials. And this is difficult. Neither our educational systems, our companies are really, we are putting the digital layer on top of the physical layer. But what if we were to reimagine? What if we were to rethink global production? What if we were to rethink and reimagine global supply chains and create hyperlocal circular microfactories? And this is exactly what we're working on in Peniche, where we collect nets. We're building we have a small microfactory where we work together with a Circe Peniche, a social organization for people who have difficulty holding long-term jobs, employment opportunities, and we create jobs for them. They come, they help us clean the nets, and they have just such a passion for this because they feel like they are contributing to their community, to society, and the state of the ocean. And so I think it is about taking that step back, and it is very challenging. We can't do it on our own. We must work together across all different kinds of boundaries, because we have a vision of creating a global network of microfactories where we can actually completely rethink our global supply chains. And I'm running a project funded by Vinnova and Production 2030 with organizations across Portugal and Sweden. So if anybody'd like to know more about that, please let me know. So with that, I'll wrap up with my final slide. I think it is about us, every individual of us. We need to be the change we want to see in the world. But it is about being curious and building completely different networks with those who are not like ourselves, and we must explore and create. But it all comes down to really daring to make a difference. So with that, I'll pass the word to Fernanda. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Robin. It's always a delight to hear you present, and also to get updates on what's happening in Finnish. Very, very exciting. Um, I'm going to just quickly introduce our next speaker, Scott Newton. So he's a seasoned strategy advisor, managing partner at Thinking Dimensions. A lot of experience when it comes to really helping organizations going through complex strategic transformations. He serves on the board of directors at Strategy Tools, where they're really helping to shape innovative approaches to strategy and sustainability. He is known for translating these complex challenges into very clear, actionable tools and frameworks. So thank you so much for being here, Scott. I'm going to stop sharing and let you take over the screen.
Super. Well, thank you and good morning to everyone. Just to make it a Zoom presentation, can everyone see my screen? Yeah. If you don't ask that question, does the presentation even exist? Okay, thanks for the introduction. And thank you, Robin. It's always inspiring to hear what you're talking about and what you're thinking about. So I've learned a lot. I've got a couple of pages of notes and I'll see what I can build off here. I just want to start with an introduction, and I'll be sharing with you some way that you as board members and non-executive directors can look at connecting innovation initiatives to your strategy and to external trends. So we've probably all seen this framework, which is used in many organizations to think about how you look at core, adjacent, and new growth opportunities, and then link them to the activities, your investments, and the capability building that is reinforcing your purpose and your vision for the future. So now, how do you do that practically, and how can you take something that is somewhat abstract and make it concrete? And that's what I'll introduce you to as we talk. I do want to introduce this with the fact that not everyone is comfortable with AI today. Two recent books that have come out have been reviewed by Yuval Noah Harari and Parmi Olsen, talking about how superintelligence may amplify the worst of human nature, and talking about checks and balances of AI so that it's more of a blessing than a curse. So looking at some of these risks and technological changes and how society might view them in negative ways is also important when we consider external forces. In addition to this, we can look at digital twins. They're fast becoming part of our everyday life. And the discussion this morning was a great introduction in the sense of saying, wait a minute, these data centers are consuming a lot of energy and water, and are we really taking environmental decisions that are responsible? On a positive side, I sit on the board of a Netherlands-based company that has built digital twins for a number of the world's largest mining companies, and they are using these digital twins to identify and reduce waste as well as identify risk. So while there is this question of, are we using more energy? Are we being responsible? There are also some really great breakthroughs in technology, for example, using digital twins and in waste management. So MIT Sloan has identified how waste management algorithms are reducing transportation of waste and also minimizing risk and increasing safety to both workers and external people that are in contact with dangerous materials. So again, there are some positives that come of this, and I want to highlight that because we hear a lot more about the risks currently than we do necessarily about the good things that are going on. Now to come back to the risks, I think one of the biggest areas that we haven't really looked on yet is this new piracy. So Nikkei Asia, which is the parent company of Financial Times, had an article where they covered how AI was causing copyright infringement for some of the most famous Japanese characters, and how that was happening with Pikachu, for example. And we also have more recent examples just this week with Sora 2. And now OpenAI is promising they will modify Sora 2 after it has been generating videos of copyrighted characters. And Elon Musk has also come to the table this week and announced that he's going to build world models to power video games. And the question there is, how are you respecting copyrighted materials, and how, as a board member, do you look at and view these risks within your own organizations? So here's where I just want to quickly introduce these frameworks to you. And again, you'll have all these slides, so you're welcome to download and use. And if you want any further feedback on them, please feel free to contact me. But this is an easy place that I start with when I work with boards and linking with management. And this is to come back to, what are our ambitions for the future of the organization? And then how are we looking at our business in 3 portfolios of business models? So the first one being, what is our core business? Almost every established organization, as you know, can really nail in on the KPIs of their core business. They'll talk about things like EBITDA, cash flow, sustainability targets, etc. So this is not an area where I think you need as much attention. But where I see things start to fall down, or there are gaps, are in these growth areas and explore areas. So what are the business models that you're looking at for growth? What are the new areas that you're exploring, and what are those KPIs? And what's important here is to note that these KPIs are different. And one area where I see organizations frequently get caught up is they're measuring these new exploratory opportunities using the KPIs of their core business. And of course, that doesn't work. So as a board member, to really ask management, how are they looking at these things, and how are they not only exploring new opportunities, but also enforcing some discipline, so that they're not leaving opportunities open and investing where they don't need to, just because they're exploring and going on and on and on into the future. And so this discussion can be something that on the surface looks very simple, but for example, I've blown this up onto A0, so a wall-sized sheet of paper, and taken board members and managers and have them work for half a day just discussing this and looking at, what are we really doing here, and how can we put this all on one page? Now, this builds on something that Robin and Fernando were both talking about earlier, and this is the concept of industry shifts and strategic assumptions. And what I've found in organizations is they're very good at looking inside their business, inside their industry, and they know what's going on. So for example, if I talk to any of the leaders or board members at the large car companies, they can tell you more or less what their direct competitors are doing, i.e. GM knows or has a good idea of what Ford is doing, what Stellantis is doing, what Volkswagen Group is doing, et cetera, et cetera. But then when you ask them, okay, what about flying drones that replace cars altogether? And now we start to go outside people's comfort zones, and they say, well, I'm not really sure about that, and that sounds kind of science fiction-ish. And so I give the example of the mobility industry because we're all somewhat familiar with it. But this happens in every industry that I've looked at, ranging from chemicals to agriculture. I love the John Deere reference, by the way. Every year I take a group of executives to John Deere to meet with their investor relations team and to go through their factories. So it was great to hear that, and I can't wait to read the whole book. Now, here's what I would ask you to do. And you can do this with any of the boards that you're on, and get together, or just as your board, or with your management team as well, as you feel more comfortable. Get them to list the top 3 to 5 industry shifts that you expect to be facing in the future. So how is your industry changing? How might it change? How are technologies, including LLMs and digital ecosystems, changing the very logic of your business? And write those down and make them very clear. Then take this and plot it on both the external and internal dimensions. And so what I'm recommending here is you look at how powerful are these industry shifts that we're facing in the future, and internally, how prepared are we to adapt or to be the driver in those shifts? And just plot those out, and then look at, where are you in trouble? Meaning that changes are coming, but you're not fast enough to be able to meet them. Where do you see the changes on the horizon, and you're already capturing those weak signals and feeding them into your strategy, and then link that back to the business models that are emerging, so your exploration and growth opportunities. Where are you strong and stable? So areas that have low outside change. This is a very nice position to be in, but it's not that common today. And then where is there slow change? So there's a low power to change, low ability or interest to change. This environment, by the way, is often very dangerous because it can move quickly from slow change into trouble. So you can take this and map it and then link it back into where are your growth and explore opportunities and do they align? Now, I'm just going to close out with one final thing for you to think about, and that is how, as a board, are you engaging with a minimum innovation strategy? So if you think about how much your industry is going to change in the next 5 years, how effective are you as an organization at innovation for new market opportunities? And then where are you allocating your resources relative to your core business, your growth business, and your exploration business? And then look at how is your innovation really linking back to your strategy. So if I go back to the growth horizon model and say, okay, we have these initiatives. Now what I'm saying is let's get a little more granular on this and look at what are we building ourselves and how high of a priority is that, and what are our biggest needs and key capabilities. And then where are we using M&A? So as in the John Deere example, the way they developed that technology for spraying weeds was they actually made an acquisition in Silicon Valley of a computer vision excellence AI company that was able then to allow John Deere to shift from selling tractors to selling outcomes. Where are we partnering? So who could be our unlikely partners for the future? Those unexpected partners that will enable you to do new things. So as in the example I gave you this morning with the mining company and the digital twins, are there technology companies we could be partnering with that have expertise or an insight into an industry that can help us to reduce waste or eliminate risk? Where are we co-investing in new startups? So what is our outlook? Do we have a corporate venture capital program? If we do have a CVC program, corporate venture capital, how effective is it? Are we actually integrating those investments into our business, or is it simply a marketing activity? And then where are we co-developing accelerator programs? So for example, I work with Techstars, which is a Torino, Italy-based accelerator driven out of the United States. And we work on a number of initiatives in mobility and smart cities to reduce waste and increase sustainability. And there we have a number of industry partners ranging from energy to chemicals. But again, the question is, what are the needs for the companies that you sit on the board on that are being fulfilled here? What capabilities are being developed and what next actions are being taken? What I've found in my experience and where I challenge you to be thinking about things is that most organizations tend to be very good or have a high emphasis on these first two. We're going to build it ourselves with our R&D team, or we're going to buy it with our M&A and business development team. But looking at these other areas like partnering, co-investing, co-developing, how good are we at that as organizations, and how effective is it in linking back into those exploration business models that are going to drive where our industry is headed in the future? And so those are some questions I'd leave you with and some frameworks to look at. From there, I'm going to turn it back over to you, Fernanda, and I'm open for any questions, or I think we'll probably jump into some breakouts if I understand correctly.
Yes, super, super. Thank you so much, Scott. I always love it when you bring out the tools, right? So these are, I just feel, can we go into a meeting already and start workshopping? It's very, very exciting. So what is happening now? I'm just going to share the screen again, and we would like you now to share with us where we are. So I am right now launching a poll. Just give me a second here. Launch. So I hope you can see it now. We would like to understand, get a bit of a feeling of where the biggest challenges are for your board. So kind of choose one of them. Is it about balancing long-term objectives with exploring AI innovations? So very much this idea, again, from the Nanda report, we explore, explore, explore. Are we creating long-term value? Is it harmonizing customer privacy with the use of data and AI innovation? So very much connected to also Robin's presentation, trust. So privacy is a big component of that. Balancing AI advancements with efficient resource use. We have been talking about the impact on the environment, and Robin also made a very good point about e-waste, for example. or finally weigh immediate benefits against sustainable AI development goals. So what we're getting right now, can we win this race, or where we will be in the future when it comes to sustainable value? So I'm just going to give a few more seconds for you to answer the poll. Some polls still coming in. If everyone has voted, I'm going to end the poll and share the results. I hope you can see them. So it's quite interesting. Not so many customer privacy concerns in this group, I wonder. Robin or Scott, I don't know if any of you is with us at this moment. Your cameras are turned off. What are your thoughts when you see the results from the poll? Robin, maybe you want to share.
Yeah, super. No, I actually checked myself the balancing long-term objectives with exploring new AI innovations. I think it is much more of the strategic aspect of how do you actually create this balance, which is so difficult, because you have the here and now. And, if we think about our, the financial, our KPIs that Scott was talking about, it is very much, focused here. And it's hard to create that, to really push for that long-term exploration. So that's how I see where the privacy, I think, that seems to be more of the, the operational, and you put the guards in place in a way, but your role is to be really thinking about this long term and exploring.
Super. Thank you so much. Scott, do you want to share your thoughts?
I would just add, I do think the discussion on privacy is coming up. I was recently at a discussion on the mining industry in London at Anglo American, and this was one of the big topics in the forum, was how do we ensure that we have privacy and security, and this was the whole industry, not just one company, and talking about ways to build guidelines, guardrails, centers of excellence to protect this. So I do think that is coming up as well. It didn't come out in this poll, but it is something that I'm hearing regularly, and it will become more of a concern because, as Robin brought up with the cybersecurity challenges, of course, LLMs open up whole new areas of risk that we don't necessarily even completely understand yet.
Thank you for bringing that point. Very, very good. So this is the best part of the webinar, when we go into breakout room discussions. And at least definitely my favorite, because I get to talk with everyone. Thank you so much for sharing, Francesco. So I'll just very, very quickly, there were a couple of messages that I would like to share still with you. Building on that point, we need more time. So, like I said, we have our next AI program, and we are going to have a face-to-face session, a day hosted at Internet Stiftelsen, that's the Internet Foundation here in Stockholm. So if you want to join us, that will be on the 28th of January. We just opened the registration for the program. And we have some more exciting news. So we have actually just confirmed our book is coming out now on the 21st of November, and we have confirmed the 28th of November for the launch. It will be a breakfast also at Internet Stiftelse, so please save the date. We are going to start the communication very soon, the 28th of November breakfast. We have a really exciting event on the 20th of November. It's organized, it's kind of a pan-European collaboration between many different chapters, also with Chapter 0, with Anne that is here with us today. Chapter 0, France, Netherlands, Greece, Brussels. It's going to be a very exciting webinar around the green transition. Very practical for boards, how to do it. And we still have 2 more sessions from our training program on the 6th of November and the 27th of November. So please save the dates. If you like what we are doing and our work, please consider donating. We are just literally freshly launching this this option to accept donations. And please also consider if you want to become a monthly supporter of our work. Thank you so much for this great session. I agree, Francesco, it feels like we needed more. And it's such a relevant topic. I wonder, to wrap up, Robin and Scott, if you want to say any few last words about the session.
I can just start. I thank you so much. I really enjoyed it. I especially like the breakout group as well. I thought that was a great, and it's true. Yes, more time is always needed, but at the same time, it's good that it gives us lots of energy to continue on with our work. So thank you so much.
Super.
On a similar note, thanks to everybody. I appreciate getting to meet you here, and let's continue the discussion. This is a rapidly changing topic, and there are new inputs and developments every single day.
Absolutely. So we just need to keep the discussion going. Absolutely. So please keep joining our events. It's very good to have you as part of our community. And thank you all for being here. Wishing you all a great day.